Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Brandon Walsh woke up that Tuesday in October with the same weight on his chest that had been with him for 3 months. At 42, he'd built a life that should have been a source of pride, a successful financial consulting firm in Charlotte, North Carolina, a spacious house in a quiet suburb with perfectly manicured lawns, and a 15-year marriage to Melissa, the woman he'd met in a dance class and with whom he'd shared dreams, plans, and a routine that had seemed solid. But something had changed. And Brandon wasn't the kind of man who ignored warning signs. Melissa had always been dedicated to her work as a yoga instructor, but over the past few months she'd turned into a local fitness influencer, amassing thousands of Instagram followers and landing partnerships with athletic apparel brands. Brandon had supported it all, proud to see his wife shine. But then came the changes. Melissa started leaving for private yoga sessions at odd hours, sometimes at 11 in the morning, other times at 3 in the afternoon. Her phone, which used to sit openly on the dinner table, now stayed face down, vibrating with messages she'd quickly read and delete. She switched perfumes, began wearing makeup even to the gym, and her clothes got tighter, more provocative. Brandon tried talking to her a few times, but Melissa always had a ready answer, a reassuring smile, an explanation that sounded reasonable. "It's work, honey. You know how competitive this market is. I have to look flawless all the time." But Brandon's gut kept screaming that something was off. That morning, Melissa left at 10:30, all dressed up, a yoga bag on her back and her hair pulled into a perfect ponytail. "I've got a special client at 11, it might take a while. Don't wait for me for lunch." She kissed his cheek quickly and left, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume in the air. Brandon stood in the kitchen for a few seconds, watching her car disappear around the corner of the street. Then he made a decision. He picked up his phone and called Jack Morrison, a private investigator a coworker had recommended months earlier when he'd gone through something similar. Jack answered on the second ring. "Hello? Jack Morrison? My name's Brandon Walsh. I need your services. Today." Brandon's voice was firm, without hesitation. He wasn't a man who put things off. When he spotted a problem, he went straight for the solution. Jack asked a few basic questions: his wife's name, physical description, car model and color, home address. Brandon sent a photo of Melissa by text and explained the signs he'd been noticing. "How long will you need?" Brandon asked, getting straight to the point. "Normally it takes me a few days to build a full profile, but if you need something today, I can start right now and see what I can get by late afternoon. I'll transfer the money now. I want results by 5. Jack hesitated for a second but agreed. "All right. I'll send you my account info. But Brandon, just so you know, sometimes what we find isn't what we expected." "I know. I just need the truth." Brandon spent the rest of the morning trying to focus on work, but it was impossible. He reviewed spreadsheets without absorbing the numbers, took calls on autopilot, and checked the clock every 10 minutes. At 4 o'clock, the phone rang. It was Jack. "Brandon, I need you to come to my office. Now. I've got photos and videos, but it's not exactly what you were expecting to hear." Jack's tone was strange, hesitant, almost uneasy. Brandon's heart started racing. "I'm leaving now." He made up some excuse for his secretary, grabbed his car keys, and drove to the address Jack had texted him. The office was in an unassuming building near downtown, a small room with functional furniture and noir movie posters on the walls. Jack sat behind his desk, laptop open in front of him. He was a man in his 50s, gray-haired, with tired eyes that had seen too much ugliness in life. "Have a seat, Brandon." Jack pointed to the chair across from him. Brandon sat down, his hands sweating, jaw clenched. "Show me." Jack turned the laptop toward him and started scrolling through the photos. The first showed Melissa leaving the house. The second, her driving. The third, her parking in front of a large, elegant house in a neighboring neighborhood, a property with well-kept gardens and a red brick facade. But Melissa wasn't alone. 5 other women arrived shortly after, each in separate cars. Brandon recognized them all: Claire, wife of Nathan, the lawyer who lived 3 houses down; Rachel, married to Greg, the local bank manager; Sophie, whose family owned a regional restaurant chain; Amanda, wife of a famous surgeon; and Diana, married to Thomas, a real estate developer. All of them were married women, respected in the community, mothers. "What is this?" Brandon asked, confused. "Some kind of club? A girls' get-together?" Jack took a deep breath. "Wait. There's more." He clicked on another file, a video. The women entered the house, all laughing and chatting animatedly. Jack had managed to position directional audio equipment near an open window, and the sound was crystal clear. Their voices echoed, and what Brandon heard made his stomach turn. "So, who gets Trevor today?" Claire's voice asked. "Me," Melissa replied, laughing. "It's confirmed. He's coming at 2. "And Josh?" Rachel asked. "He's mine on Thursday," Sophie said. "Oh, you're all going to love the new guy, Kevin. He's 26, tattooed, and knows exactly what he's doing." Amanda spoke, and the others laughed. Brandon froze. "Keep going," Jack whispered, playing another audio clip. This time it was Melissa speaking in a tone Brandon knew well, but had never heard used like this. "Look, girls, here's how it works. We rotate days, keep the place spotless, and nobody leaves before 5. Our husbands never suspect a thing because we cover for each other. If anyone asks, we were together doing yoga, having coffee, whatever. It works perfectly." Another voice, Diana: "And how do we pay the guys?" Melissa: "I handle it. You just send me your share at the end of the month, and I settle up with them. It's all organized." Jack paused the video and looked at Brandon. "There's more. A lot more." He showed videos from different days. Melissa leaving that house with a young, muscular man with dark hair, both laughing, her adjusting his hair in an intimate way. Rachel with another guy, blonde, athletic. Sophie with a bearded man covered in tattoos. It was a full-blown rotation system. Jack explained he'd identified 3 men who regularly visited the house: Trevor, a 28-year-old personal trainer; Josh, a 32-year-old tennis instructor; and Kevin, a 26-year-old barista who worked at a downtown cafe. The women scheduled appointments with them, rotating days and times like it was a corporate calendar. And Melissa was the coordinator. She held the keys to the house, which officially belonged to one of the women but was listed as rented, and she organized everything, managed payments, and created alibis. The scheme had been running for over 2 years. Brandon sat in silence for nearly a full minute. His hands trembled, not from nerves, but from anger. A cold, calculated rage rising from his chest and filling every muscle in his body. "Can you get me the names of these women's husbands?" he asked, his voice low and controlled. Jack already had everything written down on a sheet of paper. He'd run the license plates and cross-referenced the information: Nathan, the lawyer; Greg, the bank manager; Michael, the restaurant owner; David, the surgeon; and Thomas, the real estate developer. All respectable, hard-working, family men. All made fools of. "I want copies of everything," Brandon said. "Photos, videos, audio, everything." Jack prepared a flash drive and handed it over. "Brandon, what are you going to do?" "Justice," Brandon replied, standing and walking out of the room without looking back. He went home and waited. Melissa arrived at 8 that night, all smiles, her yoga bag slung over her shoulder, her hair still damp from a recent shower. "Hey, honey. Sorry I'm late. The session was amazing, but the client was pretty demanding. She tossed her bag onto the couch and headed to the kitchen for water. Brandon sat in the living room, his laptop open on the coffee table, but the screen still dark. "How was your day?" she asked, drinking water, completely relaxed. "Productive," Brandon replied. "I learned a lot." "That's great," she smiled and headed to the bedroom to shower. Brandon waited. He heard the shower running, the sound of the hair dryer, her footsteps returning to the living room, now perfumed and dressed in a silk pajama set. "I'm exhausted. I think I'll go to bed early tonight." She flopped onto the couch beside him and grabbed her phone to check social media. "Before you sleep, Melissa, there's something I need to show you." Brandon's voice was calm, but there was something in it that made Melissa look at him. "What is it?" "Sit up straight. You're going to want to pay attention." She frowned but sat up properly, curious. Brandon turned on the laptop and angled the screen toward her. He hit play. The first video showed her entering that house. The second showed the other women arriving. The third was the audio clip where she said, "Brandon's so predictable. As long as I say it's work or yoga, he doesn't even question it. He's perfect." The color drained from Melissa's face. She turned pale, then flushed red, then pale again. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Keep watching. There's more," Brandon said, moving to the next video. Melissa stepping out of the house with Trevor, laughing, fixing his hair, the chemistry between them undeniable. Another video. Another audio clip. Conversations about payments, scheduling, how to fool their husbands. Melissa started trembling. "Brandon, I can explain." "Explain?" He paused the video and looked straight into her eyes. "Are you going to explain 2 years of lies? 2 years of betrayal? Of humiliation? Of making me look like a fool while you ran some secret sex club in our neighborhood?" "It's not like that," she tried, but her voice cracked. "Not like that?" Brandon let out a bitter, dry laugh, completely humorless. "Then tell me how it is, Melissa. Explain how you coordinate hookups with personal trainers and baristas while I'm out here working like a dog to keep this house, this life, this whole lie going." Melissa started crying, but they were tears of desperation, not regret. "Brandon, please, we can talk this through, we can try therapy, I'll end it all, I promise." "Talk?" Brandon stood up, his voice still controlled but his whole body tense. "You think after 2 years of lying to me, cheating on me, making me a joke, we're just going to sit down and talk?" "No, Melissa. There won't be any talking. There will be consequences." She stood too, panicked. "What are you going to do?" "Tomorrow morning, I'm calling each of your friends' husbands. I'm showing them everything I have. I'm exposing you, Claire, Rachel, Sophie, Amanda, Diana, all of you. And you know why, Melissa? Because men deserve to know the truth. They deserve to decide whether they want to keep being played for fools or not. You can't do that." Melissa shouted, panicking. "You'll destroy families. Ruin lives." "Me?" Brandon almost shouted back but held himself in check, his voice dropping to an angry whisper. "I'm going to destroy families?" "No, Melissa. You did that. I'm just turning on the light so everyone can see the damage you've caused. I'm just giving these men what they deserve, the truth." Melissa dropped to her knees, literally, begging. "Brandon, please, I love you, we can fix this, I messed up, I know I did, but please don't do this." "You love me?" Brandon looked at her with a mix of disgust and pity. "You don't even know what love is, Melissa. Love doesn't organize betrayal. Love doesn't coordinate lies. Love doesn't do what you did." He walked to the bedroom, grabbed a blanket and a pillow, and tossed them onto the couch. "You sleep here tonight. Tomorrow morning, you pack your things and leave. I don't want you in this house when I get back from work. Brandon. It's over, Melissa. It's over. He locked the bedroom door and, for the first time in 15 years of marriage, slept alone. But he didn't really sleep. He spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, processing everything, planning his next moves. The next morning, Brandon left early. Melissa was still on the couch, eyes swollen, expression shattered. He didn't even look at her. He got in the car and drove to a nearby cafe, where he started making the calls. The first was to Nathan, the lawyer. Hello? Nathan, it's Brandon Walsh, your neighbor. We need to talk. Urgently. Brandon? About what? About your wife. And mine. And 4 other women. Can you meet me in an hour? Nathan hesitated, confused, but agreed. Brandon made the same call to Greg, Michael, David, and Thomas. They all agreed to meet. He rented a room in a shared office space downtown, a neutral, discreet location. When the 5 men arrived, confusion was written all over their faces. What's going on, Brandon? Greg asked. Have a seat. Brandon connected his laptop to a projector and began showing them everything, the photos, the videos, the audio recordings, a full explanation of the scheme. The silence in the room was deafening. Nathan turned red, his hands shaking. Greg buried his face in his hands. Michael slammed his fist on the table. David walked out and returned 10 minutes later, eyes bloodshot. Thomas stayed quiet the whole time, jaw clenched, staring at the wall. How long? Nathan finally asked, his voice hoarse. 2 years, Brandon replied. For 2 years they've been doing this, organized, planned, covering for each other. Why are you telling us? Thomas asked. Because I needed to know, Brandon said honestly. And you all deserve to know too. You deserve to decide what to do about it. I've already decided. I'm filing for divorce on Monday. But you need to decide for yourselves. The men stayed another hour, some in silence, others asking questions, others just processing. When they left, each carried a copy of the evidence. Brandon knew the next 48 hours would be hell. And they were. In less than 2 days, 3 marriages officially ended. Nathan, Greg, and David filed for immediate divorce. The evidence was irrefutable, making any challenge impossible. Michael and Thomas opted for private confrontations, tense, painful conversations that led to silent but definitive separations. The whole neighborhood was shocked. Rumors started circulating, but no one knew exactly what had happened, only that 5 marriages had imploded at once. Brandon also filed for divorce. He hired the city's top family attorney, a relentless woman named Helen Carter, who looked at the evidence and simply said, "This will be easy." And it was. Melissa had no grounds to contest it. The settlement was quick and heavily favored Brandon. He kept the house and most of the assets, and Melissa had to cover the legal costs. But the fallout went beyond the courtroom. Melissa tried to keep up her influencer career, but the truth has a way of leaking out. Close friends of the betrayed husband started spreading the story, and within weeks, Melissa's reputation was ruined. Private clients canceled sessions. Brand partnerships were dropped. Followers began questioning her, and she had to disable comments on social media. Claire, Rachel, Sophie, Amanda, and Diana faced similar fates. The Secret Wives Club completely collapsed. They drifted apart, each dealing with the consequences in their own lives. Claire lost shared custody of her kids. Rachel had to move to another city. Sophie saw her family name tarnished, the restaurant chain suffering a quiet boycott. Amanda lost her luxurious lifestyle. Diana endured a brutal divorce, with her husband using all his financial power to secure the best possible deal. The 3 men involved in the scheme, Trevor, Josh, and Kevin, also faced trouble. Trevor lost clients. Josh was fired from the tennis club. Kevin had to shut down his social media after being publicly exposed. 6 months later, Brandon lived in a modern downtown Charlotte apartment, a loft with large windows, minimalist decor, and a beautiful city view. He'd lost 10 pounds, not from heartbreak, but from taking care of himself. He'd returned to weekend hiking, something he loved but had abandoned during his marriage. He started therapy, not because he was broken, but because he wanted to process everything in a healthy way. And, to his surprise, he'd begun dating Rebecca, a colleague from work who'd quietly admired him for years, a smart, straightforward, honest woman who didn't play games. One Saturday afternoon, Brandon sat at a bistro he liked, sipping coffee, reading a book, enjoying the weak April sun. When he looked up, he saw Melissa across the street. She carried grocery bags from a discount market, dressed in simple clothes, her hair in a messy bun, no makeup, visibly worn down. The glow, confidence, and arrogance she used to carry were gone. She looked smaller, faded, a shadow of who she'd once been. Their eyes met for a second. Melissa froze, her face flushing with shame. She quickly looked away and kept walking, head down, shoulders slumped. Brandon felt no pity. No anger. Nothing but a deep, almost liberating indifference. He went back to his book, took another sip of coffee, and kept reading. 3 pages later, Rebecca called, asking if he wanted to have dinner that night. He smiled and said yes. As he put away his phone and closed the book, Brandon thought about everything that had happened, the 2 years of lies, the pain of discovery, the anger of confrontation, the consequences that had spread like falling dominoes. He thought about the other men, each handling it in their own way, some rebuilding, others still processing. He thought about the women, the choices they'd made, the price they'd paid. And he thought about himself, his decision not to accept deception, not to live in illusion, to expose the truth even knowing it would hurt. He'd learned that justice doesn't always come from courts, but from the courage not to be lied to. That starting over, however scary, is always better than living a comfortable lie. That dignity isn't something someone can take from you, it's something you choose to keep, even when everything falls apart. And that, in the end, the truth always weighs more than any lie, no matter how carefully constructed. Brandon paid the bill, slipped the book into his backpack, and walked back to his apartment. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink, and he took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. For the first time in a long while, he felt light. Free. Ready for whatever came next. Life went on. And this time, it would be on his terms, built on truth, not lies. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.